Welcome to Die Trying.
You looking at me?
No, sir.
Just checking.
Hey, so there's this
Loud noises.
thing going around the office where everybody's been building standing desks. Lifehacker did a big thing on it, build a $25 standing desk, which I think came from I'mNotAprogrammer.com, and it is essentially
You take an IKEA desk, you assemble it, and put it on your existing desk. Basically.
sort of an IKEA end table.
End table.
And you bolt a shelf to the end table. So what we're going to do today, hopefully, if everything works out, is we are going to use a welder.
That's what I'm excited about. I have never welded before, but you have, and you're going to teach me.
This is going to be exciting. And we're going to take some 1-inch steel, which actually I learned about 1-inch steel being the coolest thing on the planet from Jamie Heineman. Shout out to Tested.com, our buddy Will over there, who did a video with Jamie about welding in Jamie's workshop. And apparently all those shelves you see in the back of the Mythbusters are 1-inch steel. And he loves 1-inch steel because you get lots and lots of contact
It's
area.
a big long line that you can just put a bead of molten metal on.
Exactly, without having to spend a lot of quality time doing miter cuts and getting sophisticated. And steel is durable, it lasts a really long time. And if you buy it from a metal supplier like we did, we found a place called Bay Steel here in San Francisco, where we bought a 20-foot stick of 1-inch steel for $15.92.
Compared with like $22 for 6 feet at like Lowe's.
Yeah, so you know, beware. This project becomes a lot more affordable if you have a friend with a welder who's willing to help you out with that, and if you buy your materials from a supplier rather than from a big box store.
Let's start welding.
All right. Actually, we need to start cutting first.
Okay. Fine.
First we cut, then we lay it out, then we start welding.
All right, let's get cutting then.
All right.
You can tell this is the 4th of July episode.
So one thing you'll notice is the blade has created these edges that stick out over here. As the steel melts, it kind of gets swept along by the blade, and you get this stuff in here and out here. It will cut the hell out of you, as our shooter Matt can explain.
So
You
we'll
might
be
see
grinding that down.
Yeah, we're going to take the grinder to grind that down. A hand file will work just fine. But we do have a nice square edge. We're going to use that to create our first piece of steel at 3 feet.
Drawing on decades of experience in the furniture industry, I decided to make an H with 2 vertical uprights.
All right, so we have all of our metal pieces cut and ready to go, so I guess we weld now?
Yeah, so welding is essentially coalescing, which is turning the materials into a liquid and bringing them together, right? Soldering or brazing. Well, okay, we solder all the time on the show. Soldering is essentially joining 2 materials together with a 3rd material that melts at a lower temperature. In this case, we are going to use the miracle of the metal inert gas, the M-Jaw, the MIG welder. MIG. There's MIG welding, TIG welding, stick welding, and essentially what this gadget does is cranks out wire. Ooh, it's exciting, isn't it? And there's a, sound familiar?
Sounds like a relay to me.
That's a big old relay. When I hit the switch, it turns on the electricity and feeds the wire. The electricity creates a plasma arc from our ground. I'm going to connect that to the metal in the middle. So we have our ground. By the way, a clean welding table is a really good idea. It goes from our ground to our gun, creates plasma, and we feed wire into that plasma, and we essentially have a hot glue gun that spits metal.
And big sparks.
And big sparks. Not big sparks.
For a beginner, what's the basic thing that you want to look for?
So when you're looking, you know, you've got your welding, you know, you flip your welding head down, you pull the trigger, and the whole world looks really, really different. You should be concentrating on the end of your gun, and what you're doing is creating a puddle. Start with a thicker piece of material, or the lower piece of material, and you know, if you're doing a fillet weld where you know 2 pieces come together at a 90-degree angle, you need to melt both pieces. You create a puddle. That puddle gets filled in with additional wire from the MIG gun, and you work that weld down the length of the leg.
So we got our base done, then we went to our vertical bars, and we drilled some holes and attached nuts in so that we could have our adjustable, or infinitely adjustable stand.
Then we had to mount the legs on the base. And that's one of those cases where, like, you know, feel free to like grab a vise or use a bunch of non-flammable things to brace your project. We had those square pieces, you know, and we got everything adjusted with a machinist square to 90 degrees. And then we tacked one side and then adjusted it so it was vertical again, and tacked the other side so everything was square. And then we stopped and went to the upper piece, which is a U made out of the 1-inch tubing. That slides freely inside that 1 1/4 inch tubing. And the reason we built the upper piece first
was so that we could use the upper piece that has to slide up and down to keep our two legs vertical and aligned, because it would be really awkward to not be able to move the legs because they bound or because the tubes weren't square to each other.
One of the things I had to remind myself after I reminded Michael is to slow down, measure twice, cut once. Like, make sure everything's aligned, make sure everything's welded, snug, and take your time on the welds. Because, especially I was relearning how to MIG weld, Mike was learning how to MIG weld. And that's a good time also to stop, take a break, go to audiblepodcast.com/DIY.
Sponsor segue.
Yes. Yes, this is a sponsor segue. But you know what? I like Audible's books. There's a ton of stuff up there. If you're catching up with Game of Thrones, they have the whole series. And I'm actually pretty excited. I'm getting my kids involved with Sherlock Holmes on the next family road trip. Anyway, it's good stuff. They're a sponsor. We love them. audiblepodcast.com/DIY. Get yourself a free audio book.
So once we finished that upper U, we dropped that into each of the two legs and then mounted the two legs on our H base and started welding.
And then once that was done, we attached some horizontal pieces to act as our tabletop holders.
Well, first we jumped up and down on it. You did pull-ups on it. I held my weight on it, so we decided it wasn't going to fall over. Then I realized we wanted to recycle that piece of granite, so we grabbed the last two 12-inch pieces of that 1 1/4-inch tubing and mounted them on our C-shape, our upper piece. So we could mount our crazy-ass 80-pound piece of granite on this without it falling off and crushing our toes.
Here's our table. Look. Laptop.
And it's adjustable, so we can actually drop it a few inches, so it fits under Michael's elbow. It's about an inch too high for me right now. And that's kind of funny. We did 36-inch verticals for the legs. I would cut 4 inches off of those, and then this would fit anybody from 4'11" up to about 6'5".
And we should talk about our tabletop. Right now, we found in the hallway a giant piece of granite, which we thought would be cool to just place on top.
Reduce, reuse, recycle.
So this would probably need to be epoxied in or something.
Yes. Some sort of liquid nails or commercial epoxy. Normally, you would have a couple of, we've got some holes drilled in our T-braces at the top of our C-stand, and if it was wood, you would just screw into the bottom of the wood there.
Probably what we're going to end up doing.
Do you want to have the sophisticated sort of deconstructed granite thing?
I just don't want this to fall on my feet.
Dude, if you were horrified by our welding technique and safety, you should be. Comment down below if you're on youtube.com/DIY where you can subscribe. youtube.com/DIY Tryon where you can subscribe. But something I should point out, right? These are not proper welding gloves, and I love mechanics gloves, but I finally managed to, there it is, land a piece of molten steel on the nylon in between the fingers, which now is a part of my body, at least until I scrape it out later on. Wear proper safety gear. And obviously we were wearing welding hoods with the appropriate glass inside of them. I forgot how much I really like self-darkening welding helmets.
Yeah, because then you can see what you're welding before you start welding.
Well, you can see what you're welding before you start welding. You just have to nod the helmet down, which is... But yeah, I will say self-darkening helmets are fantastic. I had to work a lot to kind of figure out. First, I was jamming the gun in too close, and I pulled the gun out about a 1/4 inch, about a 1/2 inch, and that sort of seemed to work, and my welds started to look like welds and not snot welds.
It seems like very much a practice makes perfect sort of thing.
Yes, and a good way to practice before you start on a project like this is just cut a bunch of 4-inch pieces and build little cubes out of them, or build a little structure where it's you build an eye, then you put another piece and another eye, and then cut them apart and weld them together again.
And then sell them on the street as art, and you make money for welding.
That's the spirit. Die Tryon, people. At Die Tryon is where you can tweet at Paul Delian, at Patrick Norton, Die Tryon at revision2.com if you want to send us an email and tell us about a project that you're working on. We'd love to hear about your projects or projects you'd like to see us build. You excited? You're a welder, man.
I'm a welder.
You're a welder.
Yay.
What are you going to weld next?
Cubes.
Cubes. I'm Patrick Norton.
I'm Michael Hay.
We'll see you next week on Die Tryon.
Later.
Welcome to Die Tryon.
You looking at me?
No, sir.
Just checking.
Hey, so there's this...
Loud noises.
thing going around the office where everybody's been building standing desks. Lifehacker did a big thing on it, build a $25 standing desk, which I think came from I'mNotAprogrammer.com, and it is essentially
You take an IKEA desk, you assemble it, and put it on your existing desk. Basically.
sort of an IKEA end table.
End table.
And you
sorry.
bolt a shelf to the end table. So what we're going to do today, hopefully, if everything works out, is we are going to use a welder.
That's what I'm excited about. I have never welded before, but you have, and you're going to teach me.
This is going to be exciting. And we're going to take some 1-inch steel, which actually I learned about 1-inch steel being the coolest thing on the planet from Jamie Heineman. Shout out to Tested.com, our buddy Will over there, who did a video with Jamie about welding in Jamie's workshop. And apparently all those shelves you see in the back of the Mythbusters are